Beneath the surface of Earth, hidden deep within the mountains of an uncharted region, something was awakening. No one could have anticipated what lay below. For centuries, humanity had believed that all of Earth's mysteries had been uncovered, but they were wrong. A team of archaeologists, led by Dr. Evelyn Harper, had set out on a routine dig, following an old map found in the ruins of a lost civilization. What they discovered beneath the ground, however, was far beyond anything they could have imagined. The excavation had started like any other, layers of dirt and rock being slowly removed from a site that was thought to be just another forgotten ancient city. But as the crew dug deeper, they hit something far larger than any structure they had encountered before. The first sign that something was wrong came when one of the diggers struck the side of a massive metallic object buried deep within the earth. The sound it made was unlike anything they had ever heard, a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the very core of the planet. Evelyn's curiosity was piqued. She had been a part of many digs in her career, but nothing had ever felt like this. There was an unmistakable aura surrounding this discovery, something ancient and powerful. They continued digging, and soon they uncovered the first piece of the object, a gigantic metallic door, covered in strange symbols and patterns that none of them could recognize. The door was clearly not made by any human hand. It was far too advanced, its surface smooth and seamless in a way that defied modern engineering. As the team carefully worked to open the door, the air grew thick with anticipation. The moment the door finally shifted, a brilliant blue light erupted from within the chamber, blinding them for a moment. When the light faded, they found themselves staring at what appeared to be a fleet of enormous warships, buried and dormant for millennia. These ships were unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek, dark, and powerful, their surfaces etched with patterns that pulsed with faint light. The sight was nothing short of overwhelming. The ships were so large they seemed to stretch endlessly, their forms resembling enormous starships straight out of science fiction. But this was no fiction. This was real. Evelyn stood frozen for a moment, her heart racing. This discovery was beyond her wildest dreams. These ships were clearly built by an advanced civilization, far older than any known on Earth. But why had they been hidden here, buried beneath the surface of the planet? What was their purpose? Before she could voice her thoughts, a strange noise filled the air, a hum that seemed to come from deep within the ships. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble as if the ships themselves were coming to life. It wasn't just the ships. The entire cavern around them seemed to pulse with energy, as though the entire place was awakening from a long, deep slumber. Then, to their shock, a voice, deep and resonant, echoed from the very heart of the fleet. It was a voice that didn't belong to any human, and yet it was clear, like a command from an ancient king. Humanity, you have found us, but now you must prove yourselves worthy. The words sent a chill down Evelyn's spine. She wasn't sure if this was a warning or an invitation. All she knew was that they had just unearthed something that would change the course of history. The ships, these ancient otherworldly vessels, were waiting, as if they had been lying in wait for this exact moment. And the voice seemed to suggest that humanity had been chosen for something far greater than they had ever imagined. The rest of the team stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. General Drake, the head of the military escort, stepped forward, his face a mask of determination. "We need to move quickly," he said. "This could be a weapon, or it could be a trap. We don't know what we're dealing with here." Evelyn nodded, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the ships. There was something about them, something almost alive. She could feel it deep in her bones. They were connected to something larger than themselves, something far beyond Earth. The team worked quickly to analyze the ship's systems. As they began to power up the first vessel, it was as though the entire world held its breath. The energy from the ship's core started to hum and vibrate through the cavern. Suddenly, a holographic map appeared in front of them, showing not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Thousands of star systems were marked on the map, some of them familiar, many of them unknown. Evelyn's eyes widened in disbelief. The ships weren't just part of Earth's history. They were part of a much larger galactic history. The map seemed to indicate that these ships had been built for a purpose far beyond anything humanity could understand. The stars themselves were connected by a web of power and energy, and these ships were a key part of that web. But what was their purpose? And why had they been buried here, waiting for humanity to find them? Were they a gift or a warning? The voice had said they needed to prove their worth, but prove their worth for what? As the team continued to examine the ships, they quickly realized that they were no ordinary vessels. They were warships designed for a conflict far larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Their weapon systems were beyond advanced, and their engines were capable of traveling across the stars at unimaginable speeds. The ground trembled again, and this time, the voice spoke louder, more urgent. The time has come. Prepare yourselves, Earth. The test begins now. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. The ships were awakening, and with them, the fate of humanity was about to change forever. The question was no longer whether they could control the ships. It was whether humanity was truly ready to take on the challenge that lay ahead. In that moment, Evelyn knew one thing for certain. The Supernova fleet had been waiting for this moment for a reason. And whatever came next, it would shape the future of Earth and the galaxy forever. The air in the command center was thick with tension as Evelyn and the rest of the team worked to understand the implications of what they had just uncovered. The massive ships, dormant for millennia, now hummed with strange, almost organic energy. They had no idea how these ancient warships functioned or what they had been built for, but the voice that had spoken to them earlier was still echoing in Evelyn's mind, chilling her to the core. Prepare yourselves, Earth. The test begins now. The situation had escalated faster than anyone could have imagined. In just a matter of hours, the world had shifted from marveling at the discovery of the fleet to realizing that humanity was now responsible for something far beyond their understanding. General Drake paced in front of the holographic map, his expression hard. The galaxy was laid out before them, thousands of star systems blinking on the screen like distant beacons. But one thing stood out, several dark, red markers moving rapidly toward Earth. There was no question about it. The enemy was on its way. What do we do now? Drake's voice broke through the silence, his eyes fixed on the map. We've activated the fleet, but we don't even know how to command it. The technology, it's nothing like anything we've seen before. And those ships, they don't just look like war machines. They feel alive. Evelyn's mind raced. She had spent her entire career studying ancient civilizations, but this was something else entirely. The fleet, these massive warships, were far more advanced than anything humanity could create. She had felt it when the first ship powered up, a strange connection between the ships and herself, as if they were waiting for her, responding to her very presence. But this wasn't about understanding the technology alone. There was something deeper, something more unsettling about the fleet. The voice had said, "Prove your worth." What did that mean? And why had the ships been hidden for so long? The first wave of enemy ships, a large fleet of dark, imposing vessels, appeared on the edge of the solar system, their silhouette unmistakable. They were far too advanced for anything humanity had encountered. The ships they had activated, despite their power, were nothing compared to the sheer size and aggression of the enemy fleet. Evelyn felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The war was coming, and humanity had no choice but to face it head-on. The Supernova fleet, still an enigma, was their only hope. "We have to learn to control these ships," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the rising panic in her chest. "We don't have the luxury of time. The enemy is almost here, and we need to be ready. We don't just need power, we need strategy." Drake looked at her, then nodded. "I'll mobilize everything we have. If the fleet's as powerful as it looks, we'll need all the help we can get." As the general gave the order, Evelyn moved quickly to the main console, where the holographic display flickered again. This time, the symbols on the screen were more complex, more intricate than before. It was as though the ships were communicating with her directly. The strange, otherworldly language filled her mind, a pattern that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She could almost feel the ship's intentions, a call to action that reverberated through her bones. "Evelyn, can you make sense of it?" Drake asked, standing by her side, watching her intently. "I think." Evelyn paused, her fingers hovering over the console. "This isn't just a system. These ships, this fleet, they're not just machines. They're connected to something far older, something that transcends technology. We're not just commanding warships. We're part of a much bigger picture. This is about survival on a galactic scale." The moment she spoke the words, the room was filled with an unnatural hum, as though the entire facility was resonating with the same energy. The voice echoed again, but this time, it was different. It sounded almost pleased, but with an underlying coldness that made the hairs on Evelyn's neck stand up. "You are beginning to understand. The fleet is yours, but not by choice. You have awakened something far greater than you know." Suddenly, the holographic map zoomed in on one of the red markers, the enemy fleet. A warning flashed across the screen. "Enemy fleet within striking distance. Countdown to impact. 12 hours. Evelyn's heart sank. "We're out of time." "Prepare the fleet," General Drake commanded. "We may not have the time to understand everything, but we have no choice but to fight. Activate the ships and get ready to launch." Evelyn hesitated, her mind racing. They had barely scratched the surface of understanding the fleet. They didn't know how to use the weapon systems, how to maneuver the ships, or even how to make sense of the strange, living connection between herself and the fleet. But as she looked around the room at the faces of the team, she knew one thing. Earth's survival was no longer just about fighting for their planet. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. With a deep breath, Evelyn reached out and activated the central command. A surge of energy pulsed through her as the ships responded to her touch. It was like a symbiotic connection. She could feel the ships, feel their power coursing through her, waiting to be unleashed. But as the ships powered up and the enemy fleet drew closer, she realized that the true test had only just begun. The galaxy would not give humanity mercy, and the question still lingered in her mind. Were they ready to conquer the stars, or would they fall before an unstoppable force? In the distance, the enemy fleet moved forward, their weapons charging, ready for the battle. And humanity's Supernova fleet, newly awakened and full of potential, stood poised for war. The sky above Earth had darkened with the sudden arrival of the enemy fleet, their massive, menacing ships cutting through space like a wave of doom. General Drake stood before the holographic map, his hands clenched into fists. The countdown on the screen had reached its final seconds, and the enemy fleet was now only hours away from reaching Earth's atmosphere. It was now or never. The tension in the command center was palpable. The team worked feverishly, coordinating with military forces across the globe, preparing for a battle humanity had never imagined. But amidst the chaos, Evelyn Harper remained eerily calm. She stood before the massive control panel, her fingers hovering above the glowing symbols. The ships, the Supernova fleet, were now fully activated, their power surging through the system. They were waiting for her command, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something far larger was at play. "Are we sure we understand how to use these ships?" Evelyn asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but full of determination. "We may have activated them, but we still don't know what they're capable of." "We don't have time for questions, Evelyn," General Drake replied, his tone hard. "We need to deploy them now. The enemy is already closing in." Evelyn nodded, but doubt still lingered in the back of her mind. What if they couldn't control the fleet? What if humanity was not meant to wield such power? The ships weren't just war machines. They were something more, something that felt alive. She could feel it, the strange, pulsing energy that seemed to resonate between her and the ships. It was as if the fleet was choosing her to lead it into battle. But why her? Why now? As she took a deep breath and prepared to give the order, the voice of the fleet echoed in her mind once more. You are ready, human. The time has come. But remember, the galaxy will never accept your presence without a fight. The enemy you face is only the beginning. Evelyn shuddered, but she forced herself to remain focused. Prepare the fleet for battle, she said, her voice steady. The ground beneath the command center shook as the first Supernova warship launched from its hidden base beneath the Earth. The sheer force of its departure sent shockwaves across the globe. Then, one by one, the remaining ships followed, their sleek forms cutting through the atmosphere at breakneck speeds, ready to meet the enemy head-on. Here they come, General Drake said, his voice tight. The countdown on the screen had reached 0. The enemy fleet was now within range. The view outside the command center's massive windows revealed a chilling sight. The enemy ships were vast, far larger than the Supernova fleet. They were black, jagged, and menacing, with countless weapon systems visible on their hulking forms. The lead ship, a monstrous behemoth, seemed to glow with a dark, unearthly energy. It was clear, this was no ordinary enemy. These were beings who had conquered the galaxy and were now coming to do the same to Earth. Initiating combat mode, Evelyn said, her hands moving quickly over the control panel. The Supernova fleet responded immediately, its ships aligning in perfect formation. She could feel the pulse of energy flowing through the ships, as if they were sensed with her every thought. It was terrifying, exhilarating. For the first time, Evelyn understood the true power of what they had awakened. The first shots were fired. Brilliant beams of energy lit up the sky as both fleets engaged. The Supernova fleet's weapons, powered by ancient technology, tore through the enemy ships with frightening precision. Yet, despite the impressive firepower, the enemy fleet seemed undeterred, absorbing the blows and counterattacking with weapons of their own. Explosions rang out in the silence of space as ships were destroyed, their fragments drifting into the void. But something was wrong. The more Evelyn watched, the more she realized that the enemy wasn't just fighting. They were adapting. They had advanced weaponry, but it was their strategy that was most concerning. The enemy ships seemed to anticipate every move the Supernova fleet made, countering attacks with frightening efficiency. This wasn't just a battle. It was a chess match, and humanity was losing. What's happening? General Drake demanded. They're too strong. Our ships. They're learning, Evelyn whispered, her eyes wide in disbelief. The enemy ships are adapting to our tactics. They're studying us as we fight. Panic set in across the command center. What could they do against an enemy that could learn and evolve mid-battle? The Supernova fleet had powerful weapons, but it was clear that firepower alone wouldn't win this war. The enemy was relentless, a wave of destruction that seemed unstoppable. Evelyn felt the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders. She had awakened this fleet, but now she had to find a way to lead humanity to victory, or risk seeing it all destroyed. We need to change tactics now, Evelyn shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. I need more data on their movements. We need to outsmart them. Her fingers flew over the control panel, accessing the fleet's central eye. The ships responded to her commands with frightening precision, but they were struggling against the enemy's calculated assault. Evelyn glanced at the map again. The enemy fleet was overwhelming their positions, and the Supernova fleet's numbers, though impressive, were starting to dwindle. Suddenly, an idea hit her. She had felt the connection between herself and the fleet. What if it wasn't just the ship she needed to command? What if the fleet could tap into something deeper, something galactic, to gain an edge in the battle? Drake, get me access to the fleet's full neural interface, Evelyn ordered urgently. I want to control more than just the weapon systems. I need to tap into the fleet's core. If the enemy can adapt, we can too. We need to outthink them, not just outfight them. It was a risky move. No one had ever interfaced with the fleet's core systems before, not even the team of scientists who had unlocked its power. But Evelyn knew this was their only chance. If she could access the full potential of the Supernova fleet, maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide. General Drake hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. "Do it, Evelyn. We trust you." As Evelyn connected to the fleet's neural core, her mind was flooded with data, vast and incomprehensible. For a moment, she felt like she was drowning in a sea of information. But then, slowly, the floodgates opened, and she understood. The fleet wasn't just technology. It was part of a greater universal network, connected to the stars themselves. With a steady breath, Evelyn issued a new command, a brilliant, risky strategy that would force the enemy into a corner. The Supernova fleet responded, shifting its tactics in real time. The enemy ships, caught off guard by the sudden change in strategy, faltered for the first time in the battle. "Now's our chance," Evelyn shouted. The Supernova fleet moved as one, its ships weaving through the enemy's defenses with unprecedented speed and precision. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the tide had turned. The enemy fleet, now off balance and desperate, fought harder, but the Supernova fleet was closing in for the kill. Evelyn's heart raced as the battle reached its climax. The enemy fleet was far from defeated, but the tables had turned. Humanity had shown that it wasn't just about power, it was about strategy, adaptability, and the will to survive. As the final shots rang out and the enemy fleet began to retreat, Evelyn realized one thing. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for a future among the stars. And now, Earth's Supernova fleet had proven they were ready to conquer them.